I'm going to open my presentation, so wait me just a second, please. I'm sorry, I can't share my presentation. I can share my screen, I don't know why.
Alma, ¿nos podrías apoyar, por favor, para habilitar la pantalla? Ah, perdón, gracias.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Will you see my screen now?
Yes, Janette, it's visible.
Okay, good morning to everybody. Thank you for being here and to show your interest for this research. And as Alejandra mentioned, my name is Miriam Janette Espinosa Solar, and I'm currently finishing, I finished the program in my master's degree, and I'm almost currently preparing my defense for my thesis project and to present my final exam. Well, the title of my research is on the role of interculturality in an elementary indigenous school from Nealtican, Puebla. And before to start my presentation, I would like to introduce my topic, talking about a little bit that this difference, we know that as a language teacher, it is very important when we are teaching a second language to teach or to integrate culture, but not just like a culture aspect. So, we know that language and culture are intrinsically related. Thus, languages cannot be thought without these such elemental aspects. So, language and culture are together. The main purpose of this study, and I love culture, and that's why my impulse to research this. So the main purpose of the research is to describe the role that interculturality plays in indigenous elementary school immersed in a multicultural community through the Spanish and Nahuatl teachers' perception. So the context is fantastic. I love it. So in short, I'm going to explain it. Well, the context of the research. Well, this is a community called Nealtican. Nealtican is a little town near to the volcano Popocatépetl and near to the little town Cholula. It's an amazing little town, but I choose this context, I choose this community because it has some particular characteristics. And one of the characteristics is that this community is living in the phenomenon of migration. I don't know if you have heard the word Puebla, York, that is to refer to New York City, because in New York City there are many Poblanos there, and many Poblanos belong to this community. So in this community there is a school, a curious school called Escuela Primaria Federal Bilingüe Niños Héroes de Chapultepec. And the philosophy of this school is to rescue or revitalize the language. If you heard the word bilingual here in Mexico, you think automatically you think in Spanish and English. No, but in this school, it is bilingual because of Nahuatl and Spanish, because the mother tongue of the community is Nahuatl. So the mission of this school is to revitalize or rescue the Nahuatl. But something curious here that has to be or is related with immigration is that many people in the past, when Obama, the ex-president Obama, was in the power, just a second, please. Was in the power. Well, they deported many people here to Mexico and other countries, but specifically here we're talking about Mexicans and Poblanos. So many families returned to their communities and many people returned to Nealtican, Puebla. But something curious is that many children was born in United States and other that were babies when they come to the United States, they return as a children now with the necessity to study the primary school, the grade. And they acquire English as a first language, as a mother tongue, and Spanish as a second language. But when they return to the community, they found that they need to learn, or this school had a mission to teach Nahuatl. So imagine this situation. So when they returned, there are some schools, particular schools that have this program, the bilingual program in Spanish and English, but many people doesn't have the money to pay that. And they started to look at schools, and this school opened their doors to that kind of children. But they face this phenomena, or they face these things, and they asked help to the government, and they asked help, and the PRONI program. It's a program that the government has that teach English in many communities in our country, and they ask help and they integrate in the 90s this program, PRONI, in order to help these kind of children. But another characteristic is that this school has other kind of students that Spanish is their mother tongue, their first language, and they are acquiring Nahuatl as a second language. But here is a fight between Nahuatl and English because of, these students have many family, father, mother, uncle, cousins in United States. So they have this contact with the language. So they have the desire to travel to the United States to work, and the desire of the children is to learn English too. So it's a fight between Nahuatl and English with them. I were sitting with that kids, sharing with them, and I asked them, do you prefer Nahuatl or do you prefer English? At the middle of the classroom answer, I want English, another, I prefer Nahuatl. So it's a very interesting context, multicultural context. Well, the objectives of this research, the first one is to know Spanish and Nahuatl teachers' perception of interculturality in the teaching learning process. The second is to identify the strategies that favor the development of intercultural education in the language teaching learning process in this bilingual school. The last one is identify the challenges language teachers face in developing intercultural the things that I found. So in my literature review, I choose these two authors. The first one is Janette. It's a researcher that currently he's working here in the country. He's working in the Universidad Veracruzana. He's a philosopher, anthropologist, that he has done Hispanic studies, and he has wrote about interculturality. He explains that in the past, in the 80s, it was a famous word that identify the differences, the cultural differences. This word is multiculturalism. And multiculturalism identify the differences that we have. I mean, for example, the color of our skin, and or the different languages, or the different ideologies, political ideologies, religion, for example, etc. But well, he says that it's okay. We identify and we know and we recognize that we are different, but that's it. It's like a picture. We can see the differences. Okay, here there are the Mixtecos, the Totonacos, or the English group here. We identify the differences, but we need to do something, something beyond to this. So he brings and he started to work with this, with interculturality, because interculturality tries to embrace those differences. Interculturality is a resource that helps to improve social relations, to start breaking that stereotypes, to teach about your differences. Okay, you are different, so I would like to teach about you. I would like to integrate, integrate these differences. And it is important that how to integrate this concept in education. For that, I worked with Byram, with the model that he created to did many studies about intercultural education, because now we have that. Okay, we have interculturality. So, but how we are going to develop as an English teacher this in our classroom? So we have this relationship with interculturality and intercultural education. And in order to explain model that Byram creates in 1997, the intercultural communicative competence, he created a model. And I created this cake, this beautiful cake, because when you want to buy a cake, you can see, and you decide to buy a cake maybe because your first sight, the color of the cake, or with in the surface you can see some fruits, and then you can get like it looks tasty, and I want to buy it. But when you recommend that cake is when you taste that cake, right? You taste that cake, so you can say it is delicious or not, and I'm going to recommend or to buy again this cake. So something is happening, something similar with culture, because as English, as a language teacher, maybe we create syllables with cultural aspects. We can teach traditions, customs, behaviors. You can create maybe some role plays in a restaurant, in a hotel. We can talk about the dishes or the different dress, or history or touristic places. But what about when you cut a slice of the cake, you can see the cake layers. As you can see here, we have some layers. And we have the attitudes. What about the attitudes? The perception of the people, the assumptions, the values that the people has, the beliefs. What about all these elements? How to teach, how to help our students to go beyond, to see these layers inside of the culture, inside of a country, in a country or a cultural group. So Byram designed this a model. So he says that it's important. Now I know as a teacher that there are many differences. There is multiculturalism. Now intercultural help us to integrate and to help to break the stereotypes. But now how to do that? Well, we need to develop to know how to be with attitudes, to acquire attitudes, to understand the attitudes that the other people has, to understand that, because in order to avoid multicultural misunderstandings. And it is important the knowledge of the culture, how to comprehend the other people, the awareness. You identify the attitude, but now we need to reflect in those differences, to put you in the other shoes of the person. So the skills, knowing how how knowing, how to develop these skills in order to understand, to integrate you in another culture, and how to accept the differences, the tolerance with the other people, the integration with the other people, and obviously the proficiency of the language, how to communicate the language. That here as a teachers, we are very focused in this, in the proficiency of a language now. Well, I have my methodology. The selected method is ethnographic study, and the approach is qualitative. The context, well, as I told you, is this school, the primary school, Niños Héroes de Chapultepec, and the participants were 3 language teachers of Nahuatl and Spanish. Why 3 participants? I know that the school have many teachers here. They have around 15 or 16 teachers working in this school, but not all the teachers are bilingual. Okay, so these 3 teachers have specific characteristics because one of them, one of them is a brilliant teacher that speaks Nahuatl as a mother tongue. Nahuatl is her mother tongue. Another is Totonacu, but that teacher acquired Nahuatl as a second language, as a third language, sorry, because Spanish is his second language. And another is in the same case. Spanish is their mother tongue, the Totonacu is their mother tongue, and Nahuatl is the second, okay? Well, with my instruments, I work with a focus group. The focus group was fantastic and amazing for me because I could to do many answers to this teacher. We talk about this. It were amazing. So I got many fantastic answers, and I could discover many things here. And then to apply this focus group, I apply observational classroom. That was interesting too because I had the contact with the children. I use a software called Atlas-D to categorize or to find codes, and I found many codes. But these codes, I codify the findings in 2 categories. Here the 5 categories. Well, the first category is the perception of interculturality. These categories answer the research questions and establish my objectives here for my research. So the first one is perception of interculturality. I found out respect is a very important element here. Why? Because in this school there are many religions, because there are many families that return to that community. So in the United States, they get some beliefs, and there are many Testigos de Jehová, Mormones, Católicos. There are many a diversity here about this aspect of religion. So the teachers here teach to their students the respect of that ideologies. And they work with inclusion and interaction between them. And the second category that I found is intercultural development in the teaching learning process. Here is very important because I had a perception that this school, the mission was revitalize the language, but I found that they are not revitalizing. Why? Because Nahuatl is a dormant language here. And in order to explain this, I would like to show you an answer of this brilliant teacher, a participant, that in that time when I applied this research, the last year, this year, like more or less 5 months ago, she was a teacher, but now I know that she's now the principal of the school. She's amazing. She's fantastic because she has done many studies in the community about culture and Nahuatl. So let me show you an answer here. Well, she said about Nahuatl as a dormant language. Se podría decir que el náhuatl, era parte de los alumnos que nosotros recibimos hace 30 años, cuando se inició la escuela. Ahora son los papás de estos niños que ya tenemos en el aula. Se podría decir que ellos ya son la tercera generación. Los alumnos que ahorita están con nosotros, quienes nos aportaban en su momento cuando se fundó la escuela, los abuelos. Ellos no todavía hablaban, todavía se podía uno comunicar con ellos. Vienen los hijos, duerme la lengua y ya se hace el quebranto. Y ya ahora los niños saben que hubo una lengua, ya queda una arqueología ahí guardadita, pero que resguarden los abuelos. Pero como no se vivencia en la casa ni en los espacios comunitarios, pues solamente se recuerda en la escuela. So I found that Nahuatl is not an active language in that community. So the mission of this school is to rescue the language and is to teach the language. So I know that they are not revitalizing and they are teaching us a second language. But I don't know if it is the second language because they are teaching English too because of the necessity that this community is living. Imagine this. So another aspect that we call is the importance of language skill and grammar. They know that culture is very important, the cultural aspects, but they are worried about grammar and the skills of the language in Spanish. And imagine in Nahuatl and in English. So in Spanish, they are very worried about this. So they are designing, they receive the books of the government that the government sends, but they create their own material in order to help their children because they are having many problems with reading, with writing, with grammar. So they are trying to help them. And imagine with this focal group that they have, and that I told you at the beginning of this presentation, the children that are acquiring Spanish because their mother tongue is English, and now they need to acquire Nahuatl because Nahuatl is the mother tongue of the community. So they have many troubles with this, with grammar, with their skills, with reading. So imagine this situation. And the category 3, strategies that favor the development of intercultural education. Of course, they are applying some strategies. They have intercultural activities. They are developing attitudes, values, and beliefs. But I would like to ask you the permission to turn into Spanish because of the riqueza of this part. The intercultural activities. Of course, they have intercultural activities. Apenas acaba de pasar el Día de Muertos. Entonces, imagínense, les he contado que las familias vienen de Estados Unidos. Ellos en la plaza mayor de este lugar, tienen una plaza mayor, se reúnen a poner una ofrenda gigante, entre todos, una ofrenda, pero pasa algo muy característico. Ellos, los niños que vienen, que han vivido en Estados Unidos, inclusive la gente grande que celebró Halloween durante tanto tiempo, tienen Halloween pegado. Entonces lo que hacen es disfrazarse como Halloween al mismo tiempo que la ofrenda está puesta y ellos piden dulce o truco, como aquí vemos en Puebla. Yo estoy aquí en Puebla, algunos niños salieron vestidos a pedir calaverita que piden dinero. Ahí en lugar de pedir dinero o dulce o truco, ellos reciben en sus calaveritas todo lo que se ofrendó. Entonces ellos van al final, cuando empiezan a ir a la ofrenda, la gente les da de lo ofrendado, fruta, pan, y ellos reciben esto. Y entonces ellos abrazan estas dos culturas, lo que es Halloween con las ofrendas del Día de Muertos, y se hace todo esto en la playa, en la Plaza Mayor. Obviamente esto se lleva a la escuela, esta escuela también, donde hacen este tipo de actividades, donde están rescatando también toda esta riqueza cultural en México, esta parte de las ofrendas, de enseñarle a los niños. Y claro, los estudiantes que nunca han viajado, pero que tienen contacto por parte de sus familiares por teléfono acerca de estas festividades. Inclusive nosotros que hemos viajado ya como mexicanos, pues tenemos ya, nuestros jóvenes celebran esto, ¿no? Entonces imagínense en esta comunidad. So this, it's very curious. It's very curious and important here. This is happening here. The differences in the religion, the differences in the customs that they have. So this school is trying to integrate, to develop intercultural activities here and develop attitudes, values, and beliefs. The category 4 is the impact of intercultural education and implications in the teaching learning process within the bilingual indigenous education program. So they are trying to eradicate the stereotypes. In the past, and this school were called, and the students were called like Escuela de los Inditos, even inside of this community, because of the people that return or they earn money, they feel this feeling of superiority, and they call it in that way. But the staff of the teachers help a lot to eradicate that, and nowadays, the children they don't have this feeling of inferiority. They work with this, and I clap that. The indigenous bilingual program, they have this because of the government sent this help, sent books, because of the description of the school is bilingual, but remember, indigenous. So they have this program, but they don't use all of the elements that the government sent, because they create their own material according to the necessities that they have with their children. And finally, the category 5, challenges that language teachers face in developing intercultural competence. There are many challenges that they are facing, but a main challenge is training. ICC training, intercultural competence training. They need, because I remember that I just had 3 participants in my focus group, because they need to train their teachers in language, to teach Nahuatl to their teachers, and of course to teach how to develop interculturalism in their classroom, how to integrate interculturalism or intercultural competence. So the children...
Janette, quedan 2 minutos para concluir, por favor.
Okay, thank you. So the children no longer speak their native language, Nahuatl. Spanish is working as a vehicular language, is more empowered, this language, because they are acquiring Nahuatl, but with the Spanish as a vehicular language. And they face subaltern bilingualism, which has nuances of Nahuatl, and few teachers speak the dialect. Here, the school needs training in this aspect. And there is not a revitalization of subtitles to Nahuatl. There is a second language acquisition, and the teacher staff is working on implementing a Nahuatl workshop for teachers under the communicational actional method. They are trying to apply this method in order to help the staff of the teachers, and of course to help the children. And well, as a conclusion, the contribution of this research is open to future research, of course. This study is the basis of future projects that the language faculty has. My faculty is working with this, so the Benemérita Universidad Autónoma de Puebla now is helping this school to integrate, doing a ludoteca, doing many programs, and they're going to create a podcast with them. So La UAB is working with this school, helping them and put in context what is the real scenario that the bilingualism and indigenous program are living in the school. So this research is open to a future research. So thank you. This is my references, and thank you for your attention. I don't know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Janette. If everybody is okay with it, you can write your questions or comments in the chat, and after the 3 presenters have shared their topics with us, we can ask the questions, have a final round of questions. So we will now welcome Isaac Frausto-Hernández from the University of Texas at El Paso, who will be talking about Transfronterizx teachers in the border and creating a mundo zurdo. So Isaac, if you're there and you would like to share your screen, we're ready for you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Núñez. And Okay, can everyone see my screen there?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, thank you. So thank you again, Dr. Nunez. I am Frausto-Hernández. I am proud Universidad de Guanajuato alumni. I am currently a PhD candidate in the doctoral program in teaching, learning, and culture at the University of Texas at El Paso. And again, special thanks to all the different cuerpos académicos who made this second international virtual conference on teacher training possible. And I will be presenting Transfronterizx teachers in the borderlands, creating a mundo zurdo. So to introduce my topic a little bit, we know that in an increasingly globalized and interconnected world, migration across and between borders occurs on a continuous basis, more so on the physical borderlands. Transnationalism, in a broad sense, refers to the dynamic instability of transformative transition that occurs when people and ideas from different parts of the world meet, cross-pollinate dimensions of thought and process. More specifically, transfronterizo migration refers to continuous border crossing experiences on a routine basis, maybe even on a daily basis. And so for the purposes of this research project, I adopt the term transfronterizo, transfronteriza, and use transfronterizx as a gender-aware and gender-inclusive term to refer to people who engage in identity construction and reconstruction across two fluid worlds due to continuous border crossing experiences. So with regards to the literature, scholars have studied those who engage in transnational migration and decide to pursue education, particularly in the borderlands. And also there is significant research on transnationals' teacher socialization processes, as well as the teacher experiences and how they develop as professionals within academic settings, not only on the borderlands, but throughout Mexico, more specifically Central and North Central Mexico. However, there is limited research on how Transfronterizx teachers mediate their teaching practices through the lens of their migratory experiences. And so this research project seeks to explore the rich linguistic, social, and cultural capital that these teachers bring with them into the classroom. For the purposes of my theoretical framework, I draw on a number of theoretical constructs to bring all of these together. So initially, Borderlands is at the core of this research project. In her seminal work, Anzaldúa conceptualized the Borderlands as a third space, derived from two worlds merging together to form a third country in what she referred to as a border culture. Border thinking refers to ways of knowing that develop from navigating within multiple cultures, as well as between Western and non-Western ways of knowing. Both border pedagogy and Nepantla pedagogy have at the core liminality and third space, and they argue for a counter-narrative stance that helps not only deconstruct, but reconstruct our discourses, and in turn help complicate our understandings to the broader world. And lastly, mundo zurdo refers to a third space, a liminal space that acts as a counterstance from the imposition of oppressive forces. So for this particular research project, I invited 3 teachers who engage in habitual border crossing experiences. They are all pursuing a doctoral degree in a large public university in the United States Southwest. It's a qualitative study in nature and draws on the 3-interview life history approach from Irving Seidman. I decided to rely on vignettes in presenting my data as a way to display the coherence in the events of the participants' experiences through an aesthetic reporting of the data. And you will get a small glimpse of these vignettes as I present them. So the research question guiding this research project is, how do Transfronterizx teachers draw on their migration backgrounds and understandings to create a mundo zurdo, and advocating for their Transfronterizx students in classrooms in the U.S.-Mexico borderlands. So initially we have Rosa. She was 38 years of age at the moment of the interview, born in Ciudad Juárez, Chihuahua, Mexico. She earned a BA in literature and journalism. And due to the increasing violence in Ciudad Juárez in the 2009-2010 era, this inclined her to pursue English language teaching. She expressed the joy of being a founding teacher for a new technological high school in what she referred to as one of the most stigmatized zones in Mexico. In doing so, she decided to pursue a master's degree in applied educational research, and this helped her contrast what she referred to as a marginalized and a more privileged sector of society. She mentioned always seeking to maintain the students engaged in class and value school as an investment. She also sought to embrace the Transfronterizx students that she had, and she mentioned deviating from traditional class assignments in ways that she drew on their histories. She allowed them to simply share their stories, share their experiences, and give a few pointers in what it was like crossing the border, what it was like living on the other side of the border. And she also mentioned challenging these mojado ideologies that many students had in seeking to enter the U.S. Illegally. And she mentioned that the border was something that she didn't understand its importance until she crossed. So in doing so, engaging in these habitual border crossing experiences, she was able to develop greater empathy for border commuters, students who cross on a habitual basis, and in turn appreciate the students' assets and provide a safe space for her students to resist negative discourses and build on each other's experiences. Next, we have Gerardo, who was 36 years of age at the moment of the interview, also born in Ciudad Juárez. And he mentioned early English exposure, where as you grow up, he mentions you had to learn English. He also mentioned very early awareness of people speaking Pocho, a very particular way of code mixing, code switching, code blending, both English and Spanish elements of the language and speaking in a very particular way. He decided to pursue a BA in tourism and a master's degree in English language teaching. What he mentions was an asset that he had was that while he was an English teacher, he was also an English learner himself. And this helped him better appreciate the richness that Transfronterizx students bring into the classroom. And he mentioned that this continuous border crossing and the people themselves create a unique culture, a unique borderlands. And he mentioned that being able to transmit that culture, a shared knowledge, is uniting us in creating a new culture. And this allowed him to ultimately promote a safe space in the English learning classroom, not only for his students, but for himself as well. And lastly, we have Pamela. She was 48 years of age, born in Muñoz, Durango, Mexico. She mentioned ongoing diaspora and having to settle semi-permanently in different parts of Mexico and then different parts of the US, in which she eventually settled more permanently at the age of 15. She recalls high school enrollment as a culture shock, mentioning that she didn't feel like at home anywhere. Translanguaging for her became a means of networking and gradually developing English proficiency. This helped her to incline to bilingual education for both her bachelor's and her master's degree. And she mentioned that she had the goal to become an understanding teacher for border crossing students. And she recalls she wanted her students to have a different experience from what she had, at least when they were in her classroom. She also mentioned a heavy emphasis on instilling the home culture on her students, being able to portray their home, their ethnic identity, and being proud of that. And this allowed her to gain greater agency and advocate for students who, as she refers to, were not ready to test only in the English language while on the US side of the border. And this helped her suggest alternative formative assessments to highlight the bilingual assets that the students brought into the classroom. So in discussing the results of this study, we can see that the three Transfronterizx teachers draw on various experiences, personal, educational, professional, to develop understandings of their own backgrounds, which leads to a reconstruction of their identities and ultimately greater empathy with students who, like them, have engaged in continuous border crossing experiences. We saw that each story is quite unique, and it helps illustrate the complex development of a consciousness derived from navigating among and between geopolitical borders. And ultimately, each educator was able to help foster a third space, mundo zurdo, where the disadvantaged, the marginalized, the oppressed, the labeled, the signaled out, the excluded students were able to come together for greater social justice and educational change and well-being. The implications that derive from this research project are two. First, we need to place greater attention to the experiences and worldviews that transnationals and Transfronterizx teachers bring into the educational setting. This in turn will help promote a better transition for students and continue to counter subtractive educational practice and minoritized and or deficit lenses. And second, this can help inform teacher education programs of the new transnational reality and potential knowledge and or training that teachers may require, which in the long run may help better incorporate what Gandara and Jensen refer to as the students we share. And I also believe that further research can be carried out for more in-depth analysis of teaching practices that these Transfronterizx teachers engage in within their classroom. So while yes, we have efforts looking at their identity, looking at their teacher socialization practices, I believe we need further analysis of what's actually being done inside of the classroom. What are the teaching practices like? And what's a classroom like in which these Transfronterizx teachers develop in? And those are my references. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Isaac, for your presentation. Let me look at the chat. I think we have some questions and comments here for you. Also, if you guys have any questions or comments for Janette's presentation, we have a few minutes to go over them before the next presentation begins. So Dr. Martha Lengeling says, thanks for the presentation, Isaac. I would like to know if there are more than 3 spaces.
Hello, Martha. Thank you for this question. And I think these third spaces, they draw on liminality and arguing that it's not only A and B, you can be in between both A and B. So yes, they draw on liminality at the core and this fluidity, hybridity, and arguing that in navigating these spaces, it is where these third spaces emerge and where we can promote these third spaces in promoting a safer space for our students and, as Gerardo mentioned, for himself as a teacher as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac. Are there any other questions for Janette or for Isaac? You can write them in the chat or you can open your mic to ask them. Something that was really interesting in your data, Isaac, was about this idea of promoting empathy between teachers and students. And I would like to ask you, how is this reflected in students' attitude? Did your participants, the teachers, mentioned anything about how they're received by students?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Nunez. It's not as explicit in my data, but it's in a manuscript under review right now. Hopefully it gets published. And there is especially Pamela, who she mentions that what she's doing is advocating for the standardized tests, specifically here in Texas, where standardized tests play a huge role for funding, for teacher professional development, etc. And she mentions that her students really appreciate what she's doing in holding them back from testing only in English, which is the ultimate goal. And it's a little bit of a dichotomy, because on the one hand, the school itself seeks to promote translanguaging and seeks to be a dual language school, but on the other hand, it's a full immersion approach where the goal is to ultimately achieve English proficiency and achieve a certain English academic proficiency even at an early age. So in her resisting these changes and resisting these different standardized testing measures, she's able to promote greater confidence in her students. And again, she's really big on seeking for her students to embrace their ethnic, their cultural identity, their home heritage, their background, and she mentions that the students gain greater agency themselves, and they feel more confident in using translanguaging as a means to ultimately develop proficiency in the target language, in this case, English. And it's a bit of a dichotomy, but I feel she's doing an excellent job in what she's doing. And I think we need more teachers like Pamela throughout the Texas region, specifically on the borderlands.
Definitely. It's really fascinating and refreshing to know that there are people actually promoting and advocating for all of these changes. I have one more question for you, Isaac, and then I will turn to Janette for some questions that I have as well. I would like to know, Isaac, about your positionality. How do you relate personally to this topic?
Yes, thank you. Thank you again, Dr. Nunez, for this question. And it's a challenge always. I myself, having engaged in transnational migration, having a transnational migration background, it's difficult to fully distance myself from the participants, to fully set a line or a barrier between this is their experiences and these are my experiences. But I believe ultimately it's this understanding that I have, which allows me to better understand what they're doing. And as I always try to do is member check with my participants and saying, hey, this is what I think I understood. Does it make sense for you? Am I able to portray your thoughts, your words, your experiences correctly? Does it make sense to you? Does my understanding of your experiences, your words make sense to you? And is it true? So it's an ongoing battle. It's an ongoing clash. But I think, as mentioned, it's those experiences that, again, help me better relate to them and adopt more of an asset-based perspective, even when analyzing the data. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's really interesting to hear your insights as well. Janette, I would like to turn to you for some questions. Well, I don't know if there are any other questions from the audience. I don't see any in the chat, but please feel free to share your comments or questions, and I will be happy to read them and share them with our presenters today. Janette, it's really fascinating to see this context that you are studying, and I was particularly interested about these last observations you made during the day of the death. I don't know if there's anything else that you would like to comment on and how this late observations that you've made relate to your data or add other layers of possible analysis to your data.
Yeah, thank you. Well, my final comments were, now, as I mentioned, one of the participants in that time when I applied this research, it was just a teacher, part of the staff, and now she took the principal. She's the head now of this primary. So my faculty and my director thesis is working with this school, and he's working with her. So we expect that this research had, in fact, was the first step to enter to work with them again, because in the past my faculty worked with them, but it has we have a period that we don't have contact, or my faculty doesn't have contact with them, and now they are working. And I expect that this research help a lot, because this research put in context what is happening, what are the problems that they are facing. Because I confess that when I saw that bilingual school, I thought, oh, here is English and Spanish, but I discovered many interesting things that I told you, and now I expect that this research help a lot, because they are start to working and to help the children. I'm very worried about the children, because they are living this confusion with the languages. Imagine, they are not bilingual, they are trilingual. So I expect that my faculty could work. And I don't know what is happening with me, because I'm currently I'm going to present my final exam, but I would like to work with them and to help more children. But I know that my faculty, my university, is going to do many interesting things there.
Thank you very much, Janette. Yeah, definitely your project is really interesting, and also it's really inspiring to see that you're working with these topics and to see what teachers and communities are doing to revitalize indigenous languages and to promote their use in their communities. We have a suggestion here, or a comment and suggestion from Isaac. He says he would like to, well, first of all, he congratulates you on your research project, and he encourages you to read on culturally relevant pedagogy, which currently shifted to culturally sustaining pedagogy to encourage more place-based approach and highlights the local research of your setting. So just a suggestion there to enrich your references and your literature review. Thank you, Isaac, for bringing this up. It's really interesting for all the audience as well, I bet. I don't know if there are any other questions or comments from the audience for our speakers. Okay, there doesn't seem to be any other questions. So our next speakers are Salvador, Yazmín, and Andie from the Universidad Autónoma del Estado de México. Sorry. So if you would like to start sharing your screen and setting up so that we can begin with your presentation, we're ready for you.
Sí, buenos días.
Hola, buenos días, Salvador. ¿Ya está visible su presentación? Cuando gusten comenzar.
¿Ya la pueden visualizar?
Sí, ya está visible.
Ok, está en español, no sé, la audiencia.
Sí, adelante. Nuestro evento es bilingüe, así que bienvenido a español,
okay.
inglés, lo que ustedes gusten.
Ok, esta presentación parte como resultado de un curso en la Universidad Autónoma del Carmen que se llama Formación Temprana de Investigadores. Entonces vamos a presentar aquí lo que se hizo con una alumna de nombre Andie, Samantha, Cruz. El título de esta presentación es El uso de series con subtítulos en el proceso del aprendizaje de phrasal verbs en el idioma inglés. Entonces, para ir entrando en terreno, vamos a definir qué cosas son los phrasal verbs. Aquí se dice que los phrasal verbs en el idioma inglés funcionan como un verbo unitario, siendo la combinación de ambos componentes léxicos. Déjenme ver aquí nada más. Sí, ambos componentes léxicos. Sí, también White define, bueno, ambos componentes léxicos que se componen de un verbo más una preposición o un adverbial. Sí, entonces esta combinación nos da un significado diferente a lo que estamos acostumbrados a leer, en este caso los native speakers of Spanish. Sí, también White define a los phrasal verbs como elementos sintácticos y semánticos, los cuales son impredecibles, polisémicos, frecuentes y no son universales. En este sentido, dice que son impredecibles ya que el significado puede ser literal como stand-up, pueden tener tense and aspect, en este caso tienen el aspectual que es speak up, pueden ser idiomáticos como butter up y también polisémicos. Sí, un phrasal verb puede tener varios significados. Por ejemplo, aquí, students turn in homework. Criminals are turned in to authorities. And when people go to bed, they are turned in for the night. Sí, como podemos ver aquí, el phrasal verb turn in tiene varios significados dependiendo del contexto en que se esté utilizando. Sí, por otra parte, los phrasal verbs no son universales. En este sentido, no son universales ya que algunas lenguas los tienen y otras lenguas no los tienen. En este caso, el holandés y el sueco las tienen y en otros casos no las tienen en sus lenguas, en su sistema no están dadas de altas como el hebreo y el chino. Y también el español, que no tenemos los phrasal verbs. Entonces, al no tener esos verbos frasales en el idioma, nos dan problemas de adquisición o de aprendizaje en el idioma inglés. Sí, entonces, para Bromstead y Gustafson en 2015, ellos estiman que los phrasal verbs son muy difíciles de aprender para los English Second Language Learners, ¿sí? Para los no nativos del idioma inglés. Y mayormente se utilizan listas de memorización para llevar a cabo el aprendizaje o memorización de estos phrasal verbs. También son muy prolíficos ya que incrementa su dificultad de aprendizaje. Por ejemplo, aquí tenemos students do not socialize. Sí, o sea, socialize, but they hang out. En ese sentido, socialize, como viene del latín, tiene raíces latinas, es muy fácil para un Spanish speaker, en lugar de hangout, que es el idioma inglés tal, el phrasal verb tal como es en el idioma inglés. Entonces, en el otro también tenemos students do not relax, but they chill out. Chill out es el phrasal verb que se complica mucho más en lugar de relax, que lo tenemos casi similar al idioma español. ¿Sí? Los estudiantes de nivel básico tienen a hacer una transferencia literal de su L1 a su L2. En este sentido, traducen el verbo y la preposición tal y como están en el idioma inglés, lo cual les da un significado en la L2 que es erróneo. ¿Sí? Entonces, se han hecho estudios previos con el uso de series de televisión para el aprendizaje de los phrasal verbs. Sí, por ejemplo, Pashan, Forgan y Nouri en el 2005 investigaron los efectos del uso de subtítulos en el inglés con el aprendizaje de phrasal verbs con estudiantes iraníes. En este caso, o en esta investigación, participaron 68 estudiantes de nivel intermedio, los cuales fueron divididos en dos grupos. Uno se les aplicó las series con subtítulos y otro sin subtítulos. Y los resultados demostraron que las películas con subtítulos mejoran la producción y la lectura. Sí, el segundo estudio de Nuro en el 2017 se realizó para ver qué qué efecto tenía el reconocimiento de los phrasal verbs en los estudiantes malayos, ¿no? En esta investigación participaron 30 estudiantes de primer año de secundaria de 13 años. El método fue la clasificación de grupos. Se hicieron 3 grupos, A, B y C. Y al grupo A se le mostró películas con subtítulos, al grupo B películas con subtítulos en malayo y al grupo C películas sin subtítulos. El investigador concluyó que el uso de subtítulos tuvo una mejora significativa en el grupo A y B que en el grupo C. Y como se puede ver, el uso de series con subtítulos ayuda a los estudiantes a identificar los phrasal verbs cuando están viendo una película y al mismo tiempo están viendo los subtítulos con closed captions, ¿sí? Y el último estudio reportado aquí es de Mahendra, Ramendra y Angustini en el 2018. Ellos, a través de aplicaron una película titulada Begin Again para ver cómo reaccionaban los estudiantes. Aquí se analizó el tipo y significado de los phrasal verbs que aparecen en la película. El objetivo de esta investigación era que el investigador explicara sintáctica y semánticamente la comprensión y el uso de los phrasal verbs. Esta investigación concluyó en que el uso de películas puede facilitar el aprendizaje de los estudiantes cuando utilizan phrasal verb para hablar, o sea, al modo comunicativo después de ver la película. Sí. Ahora, basado en esto fenómeno sintáctico semántico y la no existencia de los phrasal verbs en el idioma español, se realizó este estudio con estudiantes de la Universidad Autónoma del Carmen para ver su aprendizaje o hasta qué punto ellos pueden aprender los phrasal verbs en el idioma inglés como lengua extranjera, ¿sí? Entonces tenemos aquí la pregunta de investigación: ¿qué tan influyente es el uso de series con subtítulos en el proceso de aprendizaje de phrasal verbs? Para esta investigación se aplicaron 2 instrumentos. El primero fueron 13 preguntas. Mayormente en este primer instrumento fue las cuestiones de los datos biográficos de los estudiantes, que si ven televisión, que si ven series, qué tipo de series, etcétera, etcétera. Entonces, la edad, el género, por supuesto, ¿no? Y el segundo instrumento fueron las 10 preguntas que fueron los target items para esta investigación. Estas 10 preguntas fueron de opción múltiple y cada pregunta contenía la misma interrogante: ¿cuál es el contexto de este phrasal verb? Y un video que duraba menos de 1 minuto en el cual se mostraban fragmentos de diferentes series en segundos. Estos fragmentos contenían subtítulos, los cuales mostraban el diálogo de los personajes y se resaltaba en color amarillo el phrasal verb dependiendo de la situación y el contexto del video mismo. Sí, aquí tenemos un ejemplo del instrumento. Los videos fueron bajados de internet y esta es la pregunta: ¿cuál es el contexto de ese phrasal verb? Turn down, y marcaban los 3 choices que tenía el alumno: preparar algo, entrar a un lugar, rechazar una oferta o solicitud. Entonces, ese instrumento fue el que se les aplicó. Fueron 13 de ese tipo, perdón. 10. Los 10 items fueron tomados de la página de internet English in General, o sea que ya estaban diseñados, prediseñados y disponibles en esta página English in General. Nada más se readaptaron, ¿sí? Se readaptaron, se cortaron, en lugar de 5 minutos o de 7 minutos como aparecían originalmente, se editó nada más de menos de 1 minuto cada video para que fuera más corto el video que tenían que visualizar los alumnos. Entonces, para eso se utilizó el editor de videos Filmora y la aplicación se realizó online a través de Google Forms. El tiempo que se llevaron los participantes fue de 18 a 20 minutos más o menos en contestar todo el instrumento. Sí, entonces tenemos aquí los resultados. Los phrasal verbs que se aplicaron en esta investigación fueron call off, figure out, turn down, put off, come up with, mess up, get away, freak out, miss out, knuckle down. Entonces, como podemos ver aquí, los resultados, los más altos, los que más seleccionan como correctos, es figure out y freak out. El mismo contexto del video les fue dando las respuestas, tal vez en ese sentido. ¿Por qué? Porque están viendo el video y está resaltado en amarillo, por lo tanto, aparentemente esos son los que más reconocieron los alumnos. Los que menos reconocieron fue el 46.2, que es knuckle down, que es uno de ellos, y turn down y call off. ¿Sí? Esos son los que tuvieron más erróneo. Pero de los demás, put off también fue uno de los erróneos, y get away. ¿Sí? Entonces, ¿qué concluimos nosotros? Los resultados indican que las series con subtítulos tienen una influencia significativa en el proceso de aprendizaje de los phrasal verbs. Sí, entonces, como se mencionó anteriormente, solamente knockdown fue que tuvo un 50% o debajo del 50%. Entonces, tenemos que la mayoría está entre una media por ahí del 65 al 70% de reconocimiento de los phrasal verbs. Entonces es algo positivo que encontramos por ahí, ¿no? También se observó que la gran mayoría de los participantes que utilizaban plataformas de streaming y veían series con subtítulos demostraron un mayor conocimiento y comprensión de los phrasal verbs que se analizaron en esta investigación. Sí. Estos resultados también apoyan la idea de que el uso de subtítulos en las series puede servir como una herramienta efectiva para mejorar el proceso y el uso adecuado de los phrasal verbs en el aprendizaje del idioma inglés, tal y como lo sugieren los 3 autores previos que se revisaron, ¿no? Que sí apoyan en el aprendizaje, el uso de subtítulos apoya en cierta medida en el aprendizaje de los phrasal verbs en el idioma inglés. ¿Sí? Por lo tanto, se recomienda incorporar activamente el uso de series con subtítulos en los programas educativos y promover su integración en el proceso de enseñanza de los phrasal verbs, brindando a los estudiantes mayor oportunidad de exposición y práctica de estos elementos sintácticos y semánticos, obviamente, ¿no? Entonces tenemos las futuras líneas de investigación. Es aplicar el instrumento a los alumnos de diferentes niveles de inglés para ver el desarrollo de su interlanguage development. En este sentido, se podría aplicar a los alumnos de básico, intermedio y avanzado para ver si tienen unas etapas de desarrollo de su sistema cognitivo, su interlanguage, para ver si van incrementando, dependiendo de su nivel, van incrementando el reconocimiento de los phrasal verbs. Se propone realizar una división de phrasal verbs en los partitivos y los no partitivos y analizar cuáles son los más fáciles de adquirir y cuáles son los más difíciles. En ese sentido, hay phrasal verbs que permiten la partición o la separación y hay otros que no lo permiten. Entonces vamos a checar en el futuro a ver si los partitivos o no partitivos son más fáciles de adquirir. Sí, también utilizar otros instrumentos de investigación como translation task, ponerlos a traducir, y algún otro task de acceptability, si aceptan o no aceptan, o qué tanto aceptan un phrasal verb, si tiene influencia de la L1 o si no tiene influencia de la L1. Sí, y para eso tenemos que analizar profundamente si existe una transferencia de la L1 hacia la L2. En este sentido, ver si ellos están transfiriendo estructuras gramaticales de la L1 hacia la L2, pero de manera literal, ya que en los phrasal verbs en español, bueno, hasta donde yo sé, no existen cuestiones similares. Entonces, los alumnos estarían, si en este caso, si están adquiriendo o aprendiendo los phrasal verbs en el idioma inglés, estarían reseteando lo que se le llama resetting new parameters in the L2, ya que no podrían, estarían setting new parameters in L2, ya que no podrían resetear. Si estuvieran reseteando, sería porque los tienen en la L1, pero en este caso, como no existen en la L1, sería mucho más difícil su aprendizaje, y tal vez el aprendizaje, como lo han hecho otros autores, es a través de la memorization, y se pueden aprender o adquirir a través del daily basis o one by one basis, ¿sí? Pues esta sería nuestra presentación. Aquí tenemos las referencias que se llevaron a cabo, entonces estamos listos para las preguntas.
Muchas gracias, Salvador, por la presentación. Y ahora invitamos a nuestra audiencia a que compartan sus comentarios o preguntas en el chat o que abran su micrófono para compartirlas con nosotros. Damos unos minutitos.
Sí.
¿Tenemos alguna pregunta o comentario de parte de la audiencia para la presentación del maestro Salvador? Okay. No veo ninguna pregunta en el chat, pero maestro Salvador, a mí me gustaría preguntarle si hubo alguna variante demográfica en la cual se hayan observado o mediante la cual se hayan observado diferencias, ¿no? Por ejemplo, si la adquisición de estos phrasal verbs o algún otro de sus resultados podría estar relacionada, por ejemplo, al género, a la edad o algún otro dato demográfico de sus participantes.
No, parece que no. La Facultad de Ciencias Educativas me imagino que es similar a todas las universidades donde el 90% son mujeres, ¿no? Y el 10% son hombres. Sí, entonces de los 13 participantes fueron 10 mujeres y 3 hombres, entonces no hay mucho. En este sentido tampoco tenemos influencia de una tercera lengua porque aunque estemos en la península de Yucatán, ninguno de ellos tiene como segunda lengua el maya o habla alguna variante de maya como tzotzil, tzetzal de esta región. No todos son native speakers of Spanish, por decir así, limpios, sí, sin ninguna contaminación.
Ok, muy bien, muchas gracias. No sé si de parte de la audiencia hay algún otro comentario. De Isaac, tenemos aquí un comentario. Dice, hola Salvador, gracias por su presentación. Aparte de la adquisición de phrasal verbs, ¿notaron mayor desarrollo en algún otro aspecto lingüístico?
No, solamente nos enfocamos a los phrasal verbs. Tal vez la cuestión de listening, tal vez podemos decir algo por ahí, porque a lo mejor algunos participantes lo vieron de manera directa en su teléfono, algunos otros en una computadora con audífonos, entonces por ahí puede haber algo de listening, pero visualmente en reading no, porque estaba contextualizada y estaba en amarillo cuando aparecían los subtítulos, aparecía en amarillo en el video, el subrayado en amarillo, coloreado en amarillo, y pasaba el video. Entonces en ese momento ellos contextualizaban el phrasal verbs y seleccionaban la opción correcta.
Muy bien, muchas gracias por elaborar un poquito más sobre este aspecto. Muy interesante la presentación y los datos que nos muestran el día de hoy. Agradecemos nuevamente, maestro Salvador, por su participación, también a Isaac, Frausto y Janette Espinosa por nos compartieron unos datos muy relevantes, fueron presentaciones muy inspiradoras y esperamos que hayan abonado al conocimiento de nuestra audiencia el día de hoy. Pues bueno, terminamos un poquito antes esta ronda de sesiones. Vamos a tener ahora un pequeño receso y regresamos a las 12:15 para continuar con la última ronda de presentaciones del día de hoy en nuestro congreso. Muchísimas gracias y nos vemos a las 12:15.
Gracias.